So, again, my name is David Cobb. I grew up in San Leon, Texas, in a house without a flush toilet. And you know what? I want to tell you that, and I feel obliged to tell you that really for two reasons. One, I want to let you know, not to get a pat on the head because I overcame poverty or something like that, but actually it's because I want you to know that I see the world through class. I see the world through a class analysis and a class perspective. I do that because that's who I am. It's the identity that I have. It's what my life experience has been. But you see, the other reason that I want to tell you that, the second reason is, actually, for you to know that about me, I had to tell you that. Because I want to acknowledge the fact that my white skin privilege means that even though I felt like I was oppressed by a classist system, because I'm white, if I put on a nice sports coat, pair of slacks and trousers and come before you as somebody who's a lawyer, there are other assumptions about me. And they don't have to do with what my life background has been. And that's not the case for people of color in this country, and it's not the case for women in this country. And the reason I want to start off with that introduction about myself is to really underscore how important it is for me, and I hope for you, that the Green Party continues to centralize issues of race and gender at every step of the way as we continue to organize. Now, I didn't put myself through college waiting on tables at the University of Houston, and that's where actually I got my start in politics, because I was active in the effort to force the University of Houston to divest its investments from corporations doing business in South Africa in an effort to overcome and dismantle the apartheid system in South Africa. In the course of doing that, I'm proud to say, I got a chance to meet Reverend Jesse Jackson. And in the course of that, in 1984, I had the great pleasure of working on Jesse Jackson's campaign as he sought the Democratic Party's nomination for President of the United States. So that was my first foray into electoral politics. See, the anti-apartheid movement is definitely politics. You don't have to just vote to do politics. But in 1984, I worked on Jesse Jackson's campaign for president. And in 1988, I also worked on Jesse Jackson's campaign for president. And in 1992, I worked for Jerry Brown's campaign seeking the Democratic Party's nomination for president. And let me tell you what I learned from Jesse's campaigns in 84, 88, Jerry Brown in 92, and what sadly is being learned by people working on Dennis Kucinich and Al Sharpton's campaign. And it's a simple message. It goes like this. The Democratic Party's presidential primary process is the place where progressive politics goes to die. Right? It goes there to die because although energy is generated, enthusiasm feeds on itself. People of good progressive ideas come together and work hard. We knocked on doors. We did a phone bank. You know, we had an incredible program and platform. We had dynamic candidates each time. You know, we had every ingredient that my 5th grade teacher, Mrs. Armstrong, told me you were supposed to have to get involved and win in electoral politics in this country. There was only one thing that our opponents had that we didn't have.
Money.
Louder.
Money.
Money. And it wasn't just some money either. It was big, fat, crazy, stupid corporate money. Right? It was money that completely overcame and just completely destroyed our campaigns. And frankly, it's that same corporate money that is overcoming and disrupting and ultimately destroying American democracy today. It's the reason that the Democratic Party is the place where progressive politics goes to die, because corporate money has taken it over like a cancer, and that cancer has mastatized. You know, I want to be clear, there are good, solid people in the Democratic Party at the rank and file level. I work with them day in and day out. And in fact, there are some good, solid, progressive Democrats who get elected. But at the leadership level, that system is designed to ensure that genuine progressives who have an analysis about what the real problem is in this country are never allowed to be nominated. And if you don't believe me, look at what happened to Howard Dean. It is designed to do that. And so, folks, in 1992, I quit electoral politics in absolute disgust because I was convinced that money had completely perverted the system so much that it couldn't be done. Well, I'm happy to tell you that in 1996, I found out that the Green Party was organizing in Texas. I found out because Ralph Nader had been announced that he was seeking the Green Party's nomination. Man, I was pretty excited to hear that. I called up Houston, Texas Information right away in 1996 to say, hey, I want to hook up. I called information. Who? Greenpeace? What? There was no Green Party in Houston at that time. There wasn't even a Green Party of Texas. In fact, just to do a quick check-in, in 1996, there were only 10 organized Green Parties in this entire country. Only 5 of them had a ballot line, meaning that they could place candidates on the ballot without having to go through the petitioning process. Quick little check-in again. 2000, at the beginning of the Nader 2000 Green Party campaign, at that time there were now 21 organized state Green Parties. 10 of them had a guaranteed ballot line, meaning they could place candidates without having to petition. Fast forward to today as I stand before you, there are 46 organized state Green Parties. 23 of them have a guaranteed ballot line. Folks, we're getting larger, and we're getting stronger, and we're getting better organized with every election cycle. And probably the best bit of information to that is we're running more candidates for office with every election cycle, and the sweetest evidence is we are electing more people to office every year. There are 205 Greens elected to office across this country right now, and we're not even supposed to exist in this two-party system. Yeah, give yourselves and us a round of applause for that. We aren't supposed to exist, but not only do we exist, but we continue to grow. Not just state chapters, but local chapters. As in Texas, we went from, actually it was about 4 or 5 local chapters at the beginning of my Attorney General's campaign, up to 26 chapters. You know, it's a really profound thing that's happening. So in 2000, whenever we got Ralph Nader and the Green Party on the ballot, I want to tell you, you know, we only had 75 days to collect those signatures. And, by the way, in Texas, so we needed 38,000 valid. But to be valid, the person signing it had to already be registered to vote, but they had to have not voted in the Democratic or Republican Party primary. So in other words, just to sign it, they had to care enough to register to vote, but they have to be so turned off by the establishment parties that they don't do it. And in fact, when the Democratic Party chair of Texas heard that Greens were trying to organize in Texas in late 99, early 2000, she laughed and said, don't worry about it. They can't get on the ballot. It's impossible. And so I am proud that I coordinated the ballot access drive that collected those 76,000 signatures in 100 days. And put it into more perspective, Pat Buchanan also got on the ballot in the state of Texas in 2000, and he spent $250,000 to do it. We raised and spent a little more than $20,000, just to give you a sense of what we know, and that is that with organization, inspiration, and perspiration, we can not only overcome all the obstacles that the establishment parties try to put in front of us, but we know how to leverage resources because we have genuine citizens who are rolling up their sleeves, ready to do the hard work of tackling all those obstacles because, you know what, the participation obstacles are really just the first hurdle before us. Because at the end of the day, we know that we've got to get a handle on this corporate system that is, and it's not only an economic corporate system, but a social and political economic system that's literally destroying our planet, and it is creating an unjust and oppressive world order with the plunder. Right? We got some work to do. But you know what I want to say? It's not that kind of drudgery work. Because when I engage in Green Party organizing and Green Party work, I think of it as celebratory work. I am serious. I am happy to be doing what I'm doing. Because I know it's the right thing to do. It is profoundly important and it's noble. It is the most important thing that I can be doing with my time right now. And I hope you feel that way too as you get involved with the Indiana Green Party and as you get involved with your good candidates who are running without corporate money, who are running only with the support of grassroots volunteers like yourself. That's how we're going to do this. It's always how it's been done. You know, think of this. The entire history of this country shows the same basic trajectory for systemic social change. I don't mean sort of tinkering at the margins with a fundamentally flawed system. I mean systemic structural change. And it goes like this. Ordinary citizens gather together, like us, and we just start talking to each other about what's wrong and and how we know it's wrong, even though the whole culture and the whole society is going along with the wrongness. Let's start with slavery, right? Gather together and have that conversation. And then they begin to agitate for it, and they begin to organize further. Ultimately, they go to the elected officials, because this is supposed to be a democracy. They go to their elected officials and they say, we want change. And you know what always happens? What always happens is the establishment parties of the day always tell them no, for one of two reasons. Either that's very sweet, but it's very naive and unrealistic, and it can't be done. Now go away. Or they say, you are a dangerous, un-American, you are a threat to everything that is good in this country, now go away. But you see what the establishment will always conclude with, now go away. And what the people before us recognized is that ultimately they had to create their own independent political expression, their own independent political parties. And when they did that, they were able to champion the following things. Because now I'm going to give you the list of what third parties were responsible for initially proposing and agitating for in this country. And it does start with the abolition of slavery. And it includes the women's right to vote, and the creation of the Social Security Administration, and unemployment insurance, and workers' compensation laws, and pure food and drug laws, and the regulation of the banking and financial industries, and the end of child labor in this country. Do you see that the entire fabric of what we today would consider the bare minimum for a just and compassionate society was literally woven together by people like us who came before us and didn't take no for an answer from the establishment parties, and continued to do the work that it took, the long work, but the joyous work of coming together and living political expression for their ideals? Because folks, today, only the Green Party is willing to stand up and have a presidential candidate, and I'm not yet the nominee, but I'm seeking it, right? But whoever the Green Party nominee is, let me assure you that she or he will stand before you and say, the U.S. foreign policy is a foreign policy based on empire, and it's got to stop. It is empire. Now, let me be clear. It's not an American empire. Don't ever let them say that. It's not an American empire based on the American values of liberty and justice and democracy. It is not an American empire. It is a corporate empire. And even shamefully, it's a transnational corporate empire. Most of those corporations, many of them are not even headquarters in the United States, much less do they actually provide any jobs for us here in this country. Right? It's a transnational corporate empire, and it's being paid for by our tax dollars. I mean, the insult is just piled on top of insult, because it's being paid for by our tax dollars to the tune of billions of dollars. Billions with a B. And actually, depending on how you measure it and how far you go back, trillions with a T. It is obscene. And that obscenity doesn't stop there, because it's also being paid for and lubricated with the blood of American service women and men across the globe. And the final insult is, and the tragedy is, that it is literally killing innocent people across the world, mostly people of color in the global south, in Central and South America, in Asia, and in the Middle East. That empire has got to be stopped. And both of the establishment parties are in elite consensus in defending and perpetuating. Right? Only the Green Party is willing to build a movement and be the electoral arm of the growing movement to say, end empire. And with that, of course, comes get out of Iraq, get out of Afghanistan, get out of Colombia, bring our troops home. Right? And it doesn't stop with empire, because let's just go ahead and go down the list of what I'm running on, the issues that I'm running on. It is end empire, but they say, just as it's a transnational corporate empire, as I go through this list, watch how interconnected they all are to the domestic corporate empire that's actually ruling us today. Because I got news for you. We're not ruling ourselves. This is not a self-governing country. Unelected, unaccountable corporate CEOs are making the fundamental public policy decisions in this country. So what we've got to do is build a genuine democracy movement where we demand that we, the people, will rule. Otherwise, how else are we going to get universal health care? You know, healthcare should be a fundamental human right, and everybody should have access to it. It shouldn't be a commodity that's bought and paid for. And we need a living wage in this country. Everybody who works 40 hours a week needs to be able to make enough money to raise themselves and their families above the poverty level and have the basic necessities necessary for food and shelter and clothing in this country. And we need publicly funded elections here to get these big corporate hooligans out of our election system so we can actually start to engage in genuine, open, transparent, democratic debate, dialogue, and ultimately democratic elections. I'd like to try one. I think it'd be good. Mrs. Armstrong had a good idea. It sounded good then, it still sounds good now. I'm tired of waiting. We need a democratic election process in this country. And you know what? It doesn't stop with those issues either, because I also want to point out that only the Green Party is calling for an end to the war on drugs. Because the war on drugs is not a war on drugs. It's actually a war on people. And those people are poor and mostly people of color. We definitely have a drug problem in this country, but let's be clear. If there was really an effort to solve any drug abuse problem, then it would be treated as if the treatment would be obvious. It would be, we have a public health issue and let's solve it with public health treatment. Right? It's very simple. In fact, almost all of these issues are actually commonsensical, right? And it doesn't stop with the war on drugs because we really need to dismantle the entire prison industrial complex in this country, right? We need to roll up our sleeves and say, this entire system that is being built, mostly with our work and effort and labor and tax dollars, is actually creating an incredibly racist, classist, sexist society. It's fundamentally unjust, and only a very tiny, minor minority of people, you know, a certain class of people, are benefiting from it. I told you that I saw everything through class. It's really true. But you know what? I may see it through that lens, but I see it with clarity. Have I got it wrong, or have I got it about right? About right. And the thing is, only the Green Party is running is going to be having a presidential candidate in November that stands for those issues, right? Because I can tell you right now, it's going to be John Kerry for the Democrats, and it's going to be George Bush for the Republicans. And let's just take a moment to acknowledge where they agree. They agree, and in fact, John Kerry voted for the war in Afghanistan and Iraq. They agree, and in fact, John Kerry voted for the Patriot Act, which is, of course, an absolute unconstitutional assault on our civil liberties, and John Kerry voted for it. They agree on NAFTA. In fact, John Kerry had an opportunity to vote for it. They agree on the World Trade Organization. They agree on the International Monetary Fund. They agree on the World Bank. They agree, basically, on that entire corporate-managed regime that is propping up the system that we have just agreed is part of the problem, if not the problem. And John Kerry agrees with all of that. And he agrees with the war on drugs, and he agrees with the prison industrial complex. So those are the areas in which they agree. So I'm saying, it's pretty clear to me that we the people need our own political party. We the people definitely need our own political party. And I'll tell you, I'm happy to report that there is a growing movement in this country. You know, I was in the streets of Seattle in November of 1999 with about, 60,000 of my closest friends during the WTO ministerial meeting. Let me tell you something. You chant, how many people here have ever chanted the phrase, whose streets? Our streets. Whose streets? Our streets. There's a hand. All right, now, let me tell you something. I've chanted that a couple of times, but you say, whose streets? Our streets. Whose streets? Our streets. Whose streets? And you look around and you realize, holy smokes, these really are our streets. You get around thousands of other people who are willing to put their bodies on the line for what they know is right in order to stop what they know in their hearts is deeply and fundamentally wrong, and then you win. And you get around people who are committed to not only an issue, but are driven by love and compassion and an understanding that we deserve as a birthright to feel empowered man, you want to feel that way again. And that was in November of 1999. I basically became ruined for the ordinary practice of law at that moment. And that's why by 2000, I had actually become basically a full-time Green Party organizer and activist. And I've traveled the country since that time, helping to see Green Party chapters. But I also want to be clear about this. The movement that I described, that certainly was on the streets in Seattle, it's not just an anti-corporate globalization movement. It's also a newly energized feminist movement. It is a newly energized racial justice movement. It is a newly energized deep ecology movement. And in fact, all of those different movements have all sorts of interconnected twines, right? And at the end of the day, the Green Party is poised to be, and if we do our jobs right, will be the electoral arm of that movement. See, the Green Party is not the movement, but social change always needs social movements first that push them. And then those social movements form and help and work with, in synergy, political parties. And properly understood, that's what the Green Party is doing. And that's why I say the Green Party owes it not only to the movement, but to the citizens of this country to make sure that we run good, solid candidates for office who reflect the principles and values of those movements. So, we're going to wrap it up with the goals and strategy, because I told you about who I am, how I came into the Green Party, and why I so desperately believe that we need to continue to run candidates for office, including in this election cycle. My goal for the Green Party, my first primary goal, and when I say first and primary, I mean it is the reason I believe to run a Green Party candidate, to grow and build the Green Party. I mean, that is the goal. But I want to be very blunt with you here. Just saying words is not really enough. For goals, as an organizer and a campaigner, I know you need concrete, measurable goals to really be able to talk about goals. Increase Green Party registration in every state where where you can register green. Increase active party membership in every state where they don't yet allow you to register into the Green Party. Form state parties in those last 6 or 7 states where we don't yet have them. Form local chapters in those communities where we don't yet have them. Help local candidates get elected to office. Right? Those are objective, concrete, measurable goals that I am absolutely convinced that we can accomplish in 2004. And in order to do that, see, strategy should follow goals. A discussion about strategy might be interesting. Those conversations usually take place in coffee shops, I've noticed. Because conversations about strategy that don't start with goals can be very interesting, but they end up doing this. Right? Conversations about strategy that start with goals make sense, because then you design a strategy in order to achieve the goals. So my goals are very concrete, and that is grow the Green Party in tangible ways, measurable ways, ways that we can look at the end of the campaign and say, we succeeded in this goal, and then we know why. We didn't succeed in this goal, so let's figure out why. So, my strategy is to leverage the scant resources of a Green Party presidential campaign in such a way as to accomplish the goals. For example, in those states where you need a presidential vote total to maintain a ballot line or to create one, we definitely have to pour resources there. Here's a case in point, Iowa, which is a, quote, battleground state. Y'all familiar with this term, battleground? Well, I'm here to tell you, if I'm the Green Party's nominee, I am going to commit Iowa very high on my list of places to put resources, most of which is candidate time at this level, right? Why? Because they need 2% to maintain a ballot line. So there's a reason to go there. The other strategy is to say, all right, in those states where the electoral college vote is not going to be close at all, we can focus resources there, because our whole message can be, don't waste your vote on a foregone conclusion, invest your vote in a movement. Don't waste your vote in the establishment parties, invest your vote in the Green Party, because the Green Party stands for all of the principles, values, and issues that you do. Now, there are going to be some battleground states, so-called battleground states, and what I'm describing is a genuine customized strategy that goes state by state, that asks ourselves, how does expenditure of the very limited resources we have actually meet the goals? Because the first goal is to grow the Green Party in those tangible ways. And the secondary goal is, and again, this is secondary and only to be addressed as long as it does not conflict with the first goal or the primary goal. But the secondary goal is, I'd like to see the Green Party run a presidential campaign that culminates with George W. Bush out of the White House. You can do that. It's nuanced. It's going to take some flexibility. It's going to take some nuance on our part. But if we have a presidential candidate in 2004 that's a member of the Green Party, that is committed to growing the Green Party first and foremost, but also is willing to design customized strategy and go out and when we talk to voters and potential voters and Green Party members, we're really on top of it. I'm convinced that we can do it. Because I want to be clear about this too, folks. George W. Bush is a problem. Yeah? In fact, hey, let's say it. George W. Bush is a big problem. And you know, it's not just all the horrific issues that he stands for. At a more deep and systemic level, George Bush is a problem because he's an illegitimate occupant of the White House. He did not win the election. He stole that election. He was installed in the White House in what can only be properly described as a judicial coup d'etat. And shame on Al Gore for not fighting for the election that he won. And shame on the Democratic Party for not joining him with it. And certainly shame on the United States Supreme Court for overcoming a democratically elected election. And lastly, shame on me and shame on you and you and you and every one of us in this country for allowing it to happen. So, we got a problem on our hands now because we got somebody in office who wasn't even elected, stole the election, completely usurped this entire democratic process, such as it is in the election process itself. That's why I'm saying in order to really grow the Green Party, I really believe it's going to take that nuanced strategy, increase party membership, grow the party, do all those things that I've just described, and I'm absolutely committed. And let me be clear about this. If, in the course of that nuanced, nimble strategy as we go, it looks like, you know what, David, you can't achieve the secondary goal and the primary goal together, well, that's easy then. You focus on the primary goal only. The goal of the Green Party presidential candidate in 2004 must be first and foremost to grow the Green Party. But I'm saying, and I believe with sincerity, that we can, with a partnership between the candidate, the campaign staff, and the local, state, and national Green Party, run a campaign that is smart and nimble and achieves the secondary goal as well. Man, that's a win-win situation too, right? I mean, that's a have your cake and eat it too, right? Isn't that a lot better situation for us? So that's why I'm standing here before you, because I'm seeking the Green Party's nomination for President of the United States because I believe I'm uniquely qualified to accomplish those goals. I've traveled this country for the last several years as a Green Party organizer. I've helped local chapters form. I've helped state chapters form in Texas. And in fact, was at the founding conventions of and did the legal work for not several states, but that I actually physically attended and helped them actually organize was the Green Party of Texas, the Green Party of Oklahoma, the Green Party of Louisiana, the Green Party of Mississippi. Mississippi, y'all, we got a Green Party in Mississippi now. If we got a Green Party in Mississippi, I know we can have a strong and vibrant Green Party in Indiana. So I want to stop talking now because I want to give an opportunity for you to both provide feedback to me, also ask me questions, including hard questions, and also make comments. And while I do that, what I'm going to do is pass around a yes, I'd like to help with the Cobb 04 effort. It includes, the standard sort of information. Check what you like. If you don't want to sign it, don't feel obliged at all. If you don't want to sign up, that's perfectly fine. If you just want to sign up and only get the email announcement that goes out about once a week, check that. However, if you want to sign up, please print legibly. I'm going to say that again. Please print legibly. I'm going to say it because I know somebody here is going to sign up and not do it. And so if you at least print your phone number legibly, somebody from the campaign will call you.